Invasion of privacy, and if you're a parent, you'll want to see this. A Beaverton family says their neighbor used a hidden camera to secretly record their teenage daughter for years.
But when they went to press charges, they were just outraged to learn that in Oregon, the crime is only a misdemeanor. We have live team coverage of this KGW investigation. Laura Porter is in Salem, where lawmakers are already working to toughen penalties for this kind of crime. But we begin tonight with Mark Hanrahan. He joins us live at the Washington County Courthouse, where the suspect just pleaded guilty. Mark?
Tracy, the victim's family told me they're devastated and outraged. Not only they learn a longtime friend and neighbor had been secretly recording their teen daughter, but they also find out that in Oregon, that's not a sex crime, not even a felony.
But it was so thin. It was like as thin as an iPhone.
Madison Reed's mother found the camera hidden in her room this past summer. She says it was tucked underneath some papers and aimed right at her bed. Life hasn't been the same since.
I don't like to think about it, but I think about it all the time, like all day. Every day. There's no choice but to think about it.
Washington County investigators found Bradley McCullum had placed the camera there. He lives on the same street as the Reeds and was good friends with Madison's dad.
I mean, we were looking for every excuse to think it was someone else until we had proof. And yeah, our world is upside down.
Things only got worse. They found out that McCullum had also been recording Madison for nearly 5 years during family trips to his house in Cannon Beach, starting when she was just 13. The Reeds were hoping prosecutors would throw the book at McCullum, but in Oregon, invasion of privacy, even recording nude pictures of a child, is a misdemeanor.
We were stunned. My wife and I had no idea that the laws were so casual about this kind of thing. I mean, again, to see a naked minor, why aren't there laws? That needs, obviously the system's broken.
Make a decision as to ultimately.
Today, McCullum pleaded guilty to burglary and invasion of privacy. He was taken into custody where he'll stay at least until his sentencing in March. But he's not charged with a sex crime, and he won't have to register as a sex offender.
Yeah, my parents did that.
Something the Reed family is not happy about.
Yeah.
Madison has since taped closed her window shades and painted her bedroom walls.
Just so it feels different, I guess.
Like a new start?
Yeah.
Even 6 months later, she says, it's still hard to shake the feeling someone's watching her.
Like every time I go into my room, I have to like look to where my parents found the camera, just, you know, to make sure it's not there. And then every time I'm like in the shower, I'm like, oh my God, he could be watching me right now. You know, it's just not a good feeling to have. But I think about it every time.
When I approached McCullum's attorney after court today, he told me he didn't have time to do an interview with me. As per the plea agreement, McCullum is expected to be sentenced to 2 years. We'll see. Back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark. Lawmakers in Salem have taken notice of this story and, of course, many similar cases. KGW's Laurel Porter continues our coverage from Salem. And Laurel, you spoke with a former lawmaker who is just very passionate about changing this law to make it tougher.
She is passionate, Tracy, because she says it's hard to believe that someone could secretly videotape another person in their most intimate moments in places they should feel safe and secure and not face serious charges. As we've mentioned, invasion of privacy is just a misdemeanor. And listen to this, 30 other states have harsher penalties in Oregon, including the state of Washington, where it's a felony on the first offense. And a former lawmaker we were talking about from Salem is trying to change the law in Oregon. Her name is Denise Bowles, and before she left the legislature, she introduced a bill in December making invasion of privacy a felony in certain cases with up to 5 years in prison. She's now acting as a citizen's advocate for the bill. She says the law has not kept up with changing technology, with smaller and cheaper cameras that can be operated remotely, and now is the time to put some teeth into this law.
This is a growing problem, and these victims are going to be affected. As I said, this is something, you know, this is video that is out there in cyber world forever. And there should be, it's not a misdemeanor. This is clearly a bigger problem, has a bigger, harsher penalty.
What does this mean to you, and why is this so important to you?
It's pretty important. It's become real personal. I have 2 daughters, teenagers, and if they had ever gone through something like this, I would be extremely upset, is an understatement.
The bill is now in the House Judiciary Committee, which will begin discussing the bill in a couple of weeks. The legislature convenes here next week. Bowles thinks more victims may join in hearings to bring attention to this problem and get tougher penalties for video voyeurism passed. Now, he spoke with the governor's office today. His staff says the governor won't comment on the bill right now. He wants to sit down with the staff and budget analysts first. But Bowles is very confident about the bill. She says it has bipartisan support, and she will continue to push it through the legislature with the help of victims. And we will continue to follow the progress of House Bill 2356 and keep you updated. Joe?
Laurel, thank you. Live for us tonight in Salem. And as Laurel mentioned there, Washington is one of 30 states that already has tougher penalties for crimes like this. In Washington, this similar crime is known as voyeurism. And unlike Oregon, it is already a felony. That means prosecutors have more flexibility to go after stiffer penalties. The maximum penalty for voyeurism in Washington is 5 years in prison. We're committed to these kinds of investigative stories here at KGW. If you have a story tip, email us at investigators@kgw.com, or you can call us 503-226-5041. Tonight, KGW investigates a small camera, an even smaller hole to hide it. But it gave a grown-up an all-access pass to a little girl in her bedroom.
He even claimed to have probably seen her naked 50 times, is what he said.
And in Oregon, that's not considered a sex crime. Victims and their families say it's time to change Oregon's invasion of privacy law.
Since our investigation into this issue first aired on Tuesday night, several other families have now reached out to us. KGW's Mark Hanrahan spoke with one woman who's been pushing for change for 2 years. Mark.
That's right, Tracy, and she never intended to be right in the middle of this push for a new law in Oregon, but the issue really came right to her. I mean, take a look at this. This is one of the cameras that police found in her neighbor's home, and this is small. I mean, take a look right here, just 3/16 of an inch in diameter. It was in his wall and recording her daughter.
That little hole.
Where the camera was pointing out.
And there was 2 of them.
At her kitchen table, Crystal Stutzman laid out what police found. 2 tiny cameras that her neighbor drilled into the siding of his house that were aimed into her 10-year-old daughter's bedroom.
We didn't really think it was real at first. And then once we found out that it was and he'd been doing this, my first thought was, oh, this guy's in so much trouble.
63-year-old Dana Bishop admitted to officers he'd installed the camera several months earlier, according to Stutzman, capturing her daughter's most private moments. She was horrified.
He even claimed to have probably seen her naked 50 times, is what he said.
The Springfield mom was convinced Bishop would be charged with a serious crime and receive a lengthy sentence, but in the end, he pleaded guilty to a single count of invasion of privacy. In Oregon, that's not a sex crime or a felony. It's a misdemeanor.
But really, to me, a crime like that on a kid deserves a lot more than 30 days in jail, and now there's no monitoring of him after the fact. There's no felony on his record. His new neighbors have no clue what he's done to somebody else.
Crystal and her family have since moved out of the home, and in the past 2 years, she's met with state lawmakers pushing for harsher punishment in hidden camera cases. She's also turned to social media to spread her message. Her Facebook group, Make Video Voyeurism a Felony and a Sex Offense, has grown to roughly 2,000 members. She just hopes her message reaches the state capitol, too.
It's just really sad because I keep thinking, oh, if the law would have been changed, a little sooner or even before my case. It's just sad that because they're going to be in the same situation we are.
Well, there may be hope. A bill has been drafted. It's in the House Judiciary Committee at the moment, and it would increase penalties for these types of crimes. But until there is change, Crystal says she'll keep talking about this issue. Now back to you.
While the swearing in of Oregon's new governor took the spotlight at the state capitol today, there was a lot of other important work taking place, including a hearing to address so-called video voyeurism and upskirting. It's an issue KGW brought to light within the last few weeks. In one instance, a Springfield man used a tiny camera to record his underage neighbor for months. He wasn't charged with a sex crime or even a felony. Then in Washington County, a judge called this man, Patrick Buono, sick for taking cell phone photos up a 13-year-old girl's skirt. But he said the man didn't break the law because it doesn't explicitly prohibit taking these kinds of photos. Now, lawmakers want to change that. KGW's Mark Hanrahan was in today's hearing in Salem. And Mark, this is an issue that really a lot of people feel very passionate about.
It is, Laura. When you hear about some of these cases, it's easy to understand why. I mean, first off, these victims feel devastated by what's happened to them. And then to make matters worse, they learn that the people who've been secretly recording them or who've taken an upskirt photo of them face little to no punishment.
I no longer feel safe in my classroom.
Emotional testimony today from victims of so-called upskirting and video voyeurism.
I had no reason to believe that my body needed to be protected.
Dana Lovejoy is a teacher who told lawmakers how a student took a photo under her skirt and shared it with classmates. She was horrified to learn that under Oregon law, the boy had not committed a crime. She's now pushing lawmakers to make taking the photo illegal as well as sharing it. In the same hearing, victims of video voyeurism urged the House Judiciary Committee to increase penalties for using hidden cameras to secretly record people during their most private moments.
We were shocked to be told that in the state of Oregon, these crimes are only considered a misdemeanor, and perpetrators do not have to register as a sex offender after committing these crimes, including minors.
The House Judiciary Committee did not take any action on either proposed law today. They're waiting to amend or make small changes to them to ensure they're constitutional before moving forward. But lawmakers I spoke with today seem confident that that will happen. Laurel, back to you.
Mark Hanrahan live in Salem. Thank you, Mark.
New developments tonight in a KGW investigation. It's about hidden camera cases and a family's push for stiffer penalties.
Yesterday, the man who secretly recorded their daughter for 4 years was sentenced to 2 years in prison. KGW's Mark Hanrahan spoke with them and with the prosecutor. And Mark, he's frustrated too.
He is, Laurel, and it's easy to understand why. Secretly recording someone as they get dressed or use the bathroom is only a misdemeanor in Oregon, even when the victim is a child. And he says children in Oregon deserve to be protected.
I don't like to think about it, but I think about it all the time, like all day. Every day. There's no choice but to think about it. But it was so thin. It was like as thin as an iPhone.
That was in January. Madison Reed told us how her life had been impacted by her one-time close family friend Bradley McCollum. Yesterday, a judge sentenced him to 2 years in prison. And over the phone, Madison's dad told us that's not long enough.
It's a shame that 2 years is all he could get, was the maximum he could get due to laws right now, but hopefully those laws are getting changed.
McCollum secretly recorded Reed at his beach house starting when she was 13. Then over the summer, he set up a hidden camera in her bedroom. In the end, he pled guilty to burglary and attempted invasion of privacy.
They're hard to prosecute because of the limitations.
Washington County Deputy District Attorney Dustin Staton prosecuted the case. He too was frustrated that under Oregon law, he couldn't put McCollum away longer.
It's frustrating because you know that you can't hold people properly accountable, and that's the first question that victims always have. You mean it has this impact on me for this long a period of time? It causes me to change my behavior over a long period of time, but that's all the consequences that the state believes a person should have for it?
He and the Reeds are hopeful that a bill to increase penalties in hidden camera cases will get the support it needs to become law, so more families aren't left with a feeling of injustice.
He filmed my daughter for 4.5 years, and it was all misdemeanors. That's the part that really hurts as a parent.
The bill to increase penalties in hidden camera cases is now at the House Judiciary Committee. Another bill to make taking upskirt pictures illegal is also with the same committee. Both appear to have bipartisan support. Tracy, back to you.
Well, keep us posted, Mark. Thank you. A 19-year-old woman says she was devastated when she found hidden cameras she believes were intended to secretly record her in the shower. After a lengthy investigation, prosecutors charged a Happy Valley man for setting up those cameras. KGW's Mark Hanrahan was in court today. He joins us live with what the victim is saying. Mark.
Well, Tracy, the victims say there were 2 young women in Kurt Higgins' Happy Valley home the day they found those hidden cameras, and tonight we're hearing from one of them. She tells us she knew Higgins. He was the father of one of her good friends, so she trusted him. This whole ordeal for her has been painful.
I wake up every day afraid.
It's been 10 months, but Courtney Crane still struggles with finding the hidden cameras. It's hard to trust people and hard to shake the feeling that she's being watched.
When I go into a bathroom, even in my own house, I look around, to see if anyone's there. Even in my room, Anywhere I go, I always feel like I'm being watched.
In July, she says she was house sitting for one of her friend's dads, Kurt Higgins. She'd known him for several years and trusted him. But she says she started to get suspicious because he kept urging her to use the shower in the master bedroom.
And he kept texting me to like go into the bathroom.
That's when she decided to look and found two small cameras wedged between two towels.
For someone that, you know, you've grown up with all of high school and is one of your best friend's father, to see cameras in the bathroom is just like, why do you need cameras there? Like, obviously they were there for me.
State versus Kurt Robert Higgins.
After a lengthy investigation, prosecutors this week charged Higgins with 3 counts of attempted invasion of personal privacy. Those are misdemeanors, which means if he's convicted, he won't have to register as a sex offender and faces a maximum potential punishment of 1 year in jail. As for Crane, she fears she'll be dealing with the fallout for years to come.
When it first happened, I couldn't leave my house for like 2 weeks because I was so afraid. Going off to college was really hard because I didn't have my friend group that I trusted, and I hated my first year of college because I couldn't build relationships with people because I just couldn't trust them.
After court today, Higgins declined to comment. So did his attorney. We should point out we've been covering these hidden camera types of crimes for several months here at KGW, and we've also been telling you about an effort underway in the state legislature to increase the penalties for these types of crimes. Well, the bill to do just that has already passed the Oregon House, and tomorrow makes its way to a Senate committee for consideration. We'll keep you posted.
And now to an update on a KGW investigation. A law making it a felony to secretly record someone while they're nude in a private area has now passed both the Oregon House and Senate. The bill is meant to crack down on video voyeurism suspects. Supporters, including the families of several victims, said that current laws aren't harsh enough when it comes to this kind of an invasion of privacy. The bill should head to Governor Kate Brown's desk. Lawmakers also recently passed measures increasing penalties for people caught taking upskirt photos, and one that outlaws so-called revenge porn.